Welcome back. This is the weekend project. 2009 Camry SE V6, which is a bit of a rarity, but there's also other models like the Avalon and Lexus that have this exact setup in it and the exact parts that I'm going to be replacing today. This radiator has a leak, as evidenced by this pink stuff that's sprayed on here. It took me a bit to find out where the leak is. I thought it was here first. I replaced the cap, the radiator cap, that wasn't it. And so then I looked at several other things, and then I had continued to suspect that it was a crack in the radiator, but I could never find it. You can see the radiator from within this backside. But I did find it by looking into the grill, right up into the top of the radiator. There's a crack. I'll have to show it after I get things out a little bit more. But let's get started. We're going to put this thing up, then we're going to remove this metal piece. We're going to remove the air intake, bolt. You may have a couple of wire stays and cables that you need to pop off, but that'll just wiggle out. That'll be out of the way, this will be out of the way, and then we'll be in there to the radiator. You're going to need access to under here. So to get to that, all you have to do is pop these out, and you can get a special tool to do that, or you can use a flathead screwdriver to get up on one end of it and then come around the other end and then pull them straight out. Put all those in a cup, and then you'll just take that off. In preparation for this, I've jacked the car up and I've put it under this, and I've chalked the rear wheels. The other thing that you want to do is you want to probably drain the coolant, and if you look right down there at the bottom, you will see a plug, that one right there, that white one, and you can go down there and you can remove the plastic cowling down beneath, and you can unscrew that, and you can safely drain the coolant into a EPA approved container and dispose of it properly. Now, I apologize for some of the background noise. You want to take out this piece, as I said earlier. It's a 10mm here and a 10mm there. There's a 10mm there, and I've already put these back in so I wouldn't lose them. And then to take this piece out, you just wiggle it right out like that. But you're going to have to take that and just press it up, and then take this clip off. Once you got that out of the way, you're going to have one last 10mm here. We'll remove that. Alright, so we're taking that middle piece off. You know, you got that one, and you got, as I said, this one here. That simply wiggles out of that area, and a couple of 10mm, and then you have to take a couple of wire clips off. Then you got a couple of things down in this area to get this piece on out. You'll have to get a, what they call it, a box wrench or a traditional wrench to be able to turn that around. I guess box is the other end, but we'll get those on out. And then you've got the hose and a couple things connected. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Actually, then you just lift up on that, and that rubber grommet just stays under there. Same thing on this side. There's one bolt right down here you don't want to forget about. You can see it right there, the red one. Probably get it out with a socket or with a box end wrench. That bolt is a little difficult to get out, but you'll get it out. I'm going to straighten mine up where I bent the housing a little bit. But then the horn and the horn over here, you need to unplug those by squeezing the clip. Let me see if I can show that action. You need to squeeze it and pull it straight out on both of those, because those cords are pretty short. Those wires are pretty short. Then you'll be able to more or less lift it out. You still got that cable there, but you can place it out of the way. Don't let it cross your battery terminals. If one of them's exposed, one of mine's protected. And that's going to be to take this bolt out and that bolt out. Be very careful with your air conditioning coil, which is right here in the front, because of course it has coolant in it for the air conditioner and is under pressure. And now we can see where mine is cracked. See that crack right there? So that's the known crack I have, and there may be more. You can see where it's a little black around it from where it's been weeping out, and it's running back down into this tray and then running way over to the side where I couldn't see where it was coming from, and it was blowing back. It was running down and blowing back into there, and it was difficult to see where the leak was coming from, but that's definitely it. Now keep in mind that you can easily unhook most other things. This will come off just by firmly holding it, twisting gently back and forth. Lay the reservoir tube to the side. At the bottom of this radiator we have a couple transmission cooler lines, and we're going to have to deal with that too. And I think I'm going to deal with that from underneath. I'm going to take that cowling off that I said I was going to take off earlier. And when you loosen these up, again 10mm, you want to keep all your hardware. So keep a cup around. Be careful that little nut that will need to slide back in to your new radiator assembly. I believe you'll want to not discard anything. I already loosened these up. Now I'm bringing them out with my hand. The other thing that we'll do is we'll get the large radiator hose, that one, disconnected. And there's going to be one at the bottom to disconnect as well, which is the one that runs from there all the way to the bottom. Now you do want to take these off, and they'll go right back on top of your radiator. Got my hose off. I've got most things from the top side off. You may also have to disconnect some of these wires and cables so you can pull the whole thing up there with the fans. After you get those out, there's two more bolts at the bottom. You can see there's one right there, and there's one right there. And remember those rubber feet that were up here? There's two more underneath. So just keep those in mind. Alright, now that you've got those two bolts down at the bottom out, you'll want to get the transmission cooler lines out. I was originally going to get to those from the bottom, but I'm going to take this out. And the way you may be wondering, how do you get this out? You just lift up and then wiggle it, and this air intake will come out. Now that we've got that out of the way, you can see the transmission cooler lines. There's one right there at the top, and there's one that turns the other way. It's 90 degrees to this one underneath. It's right underneath it. And they both have hose clamps on them, so you can take them off on this end, or it's up to you. You can try to take them off on the other end. And as far as this other radiator hose goes, you can disconnect it at the top. It's easy to get to. But once you do that, you've got a lot of hose that you need to finagle when you lift this entire assembly up. And it's possible to do it, but just know you're going to pick your poison there. Even loosening it here at the top and taking it off, or taking it off at the bottom of the radiator. If you look at your wires that come in here and connect your fan and the rectifier and everything, you probably want to unplug it right here. But once you do that, you'll also need to take off some of these braces here. Get your screwdriver that's flathead in there and gently go in there and try not to break those clamps and pull those off. To take this big one off right here, you want to take a screwdriver, a flathead, and you want to press it right here on this. Basically it's a button, and then wiggle this whole assembly off. Take that hose clamp, take you a pair of pliers or a pair of vice grips, squeeze it and push it back on the hose. And then once that's free, you want to work that hose off. Before you do that, you want to take a piece of plastic, or you want to take some cardboard, put it underneath, because you're going to get a little bit of the ATF, automatic transmission fluid, that's going to leak out. Now, I'll show you later, we'll want to top that off, because you've got some that's in the, you've got an amount that's in the transmission cooler itself too, and you're going to be low. Not only the amount in the pipes, remember, but the amount that's inside the transmission cooler portion of this radiator. See, once you get that clamp pushed back, then you can pull it off of that barb, and there's a soft barb. Rock it gently back and forth so you can reuse your transmission lines unless you want to buy new ones. Now that you got that top one off, you want to do the same thing with the other one. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult to reach, but I'm sure you'll get it. Here we are from a bottom look, and the other one's really hard to get to. I don't know if you can see it up in there. The hose clamp at that 90 degrees is hard to get to, so I believe I'm going to take it off the other side. So I bent this a little bit because the radiator and transmission cooler are now junk, so I can't get to that hose clamp, but I'm going to bend that because it doesn't matter. This is junk, and I'm going to take it off from this side. I bent it out a little bit and I backed it off. So now that it's off, it's just like that other side. We're going to work it gently back and forth. Easier to do with two hands even, and we'll get the other side off. You will have to do a little bit to wrestle it out. You'll need completely two hands. I've got it out now, but this hose is going to give you some issues coming out. Don't give up. Wiggle it one way or the other. Be careful not to hit your AC too hard, and then you want to remember to keep these rubber feet. We're all loose, and I'm going to lift it out of here and lay it down. Alright, we got it. We laid it down. Now this is the part where you want to decide if you're going to keep your hoses or not. Inspect them really good and see if you think that they are going to last, because you don't want to do this job again. Same thing for the other transmission lines. See what you want to do there. So now it's just a matter of taking these off. You squeeze those together. There's actually 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. And then you'll see down there at the bottom, it just clipped right in there, and the fan assembly lifts out, and you reuse it. Clean it up if you wish. And this is the point where you want to take your new radiator and you want to transfer your hoses, or you want to put the new hoses on. And also see if you got a radiator cap. You may want to reuse it or consider that. Now I can definitely see where my leak was. At least the main leak. Even though this says Toyota, I believe it's Denso. I'm replacing it with the Denso. Right there was my leak across there. You'll remember we got this off at the bottom. I think the other one's probably still in the car. You want to put it back where it goes. That one's still there. This one will reside back here. The radiator, the new radiator, will sit right down in those 2 holes. And then you'll reverse the process. Put it all back together. And you've got the new one. Literally just came by FedEx a few minutes ago. This is a Denso replacement. I noticed a few things might be a little different in the mold, but otherwise it's supposed to be same as OEM. And you want to switch your hoses over. And you want to put them generally about the same way they are. So that transmission line, I'm going to orient it just about the same way on that one. And then the coolant line, I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Now's the time to take a little pride in your car and clean this out if you want to, because you're going to have a lot of muck down in there, and wipe that out. Alright, we've got the hoses we wanted to put back on there. We've got the ones replaced as brand new if we wanted to replace them brand new. Alright, so you put the fan on there and you slid everything back in. Trust me, it's going to be a tight fit. Wiggle it up a little bit and it will go on in there. Just keep working at it and keep working at your hoses. Now you've reconnected your hose here. You've reconnected your hose here. You've reconnected your wire here. And then your stays there, there, and there. You've reconnected to your transmission line for the coolant. And then you've gone under the car and you've reconnected the one that was down there, depending on where you disconnected them. And then you've double checked everything. You've also reached under there and you've felt that the rubber feet that it sits on are in place, alright? And that it's level. You've also bolted this back in. You've bolted this back in. You've done the same thing at the bottom and at the bottom. Those are a little challenging to put back in, but you'll get it. You see there's a little groove up in here that this hooks onto, and then that goes through. Those nuts were in my kit, so I didn't have to worry about reusing the old ones. But you've tightened those back up. A good thing to have would be a ratcheting box wrench, and that would be awesome to have. I've got an American set, and I don't have a 10mm one. It's the first time I've needed one in a while, and there's nothing in my American set that'll fit it. So if you've got that, that would be good. Otherwise, everything's 10mm, pair of pliers here and pair of pliers over there. And you've got everything reconnected. You're going to put back in your brace, and you're going to make sure that your cable up here for your hood is clamped back in, and that you've reconnected your 10mm bolts accordingly. And now as you put this brace back on here for the hood and everything, you also made sure you slid those into place underneath it. This is not bolted yet, so it's the perfect time to do that. Those go into the top of the radiator, hold the radiator all in place from the top, and then we're going to start putting our bolts back in. Here, 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 and right in this area. Well, that little bolt right there and that little bolt right there are a pain in the butt. I finally found a short extension on my wrench, and I could get it down in there to get it started. And then you can take off the Toyota emblem here temporarily if you're very careful and don't break any of the clips on it. And that may help you get to it. I put the this part of the air cleaner back in place. You'll remember it's got a piece that goes down in here and it swoops up and it comes into the back of the air intake, I should say. And it swoops right up in here and you can feel it. It's right there. And you can feel that it went back inside the air intake. So make sure that's back in place. And then I've temporarily put this bolt here. And now I'm going to put the other part of the air intake back in place. Put a couple of bolts on there. Okay, we've got the upper part of the air intake back in place, and we made sure that it came together with that lower part right there. It has a good fit. Put those bolts back in, and then we took the hose here and we put it back in. Now's a good chance to look around. Make sure you don't have any extra pieces. All those go to the cowling underneath, the plastic cowling that goes underneath the car. I'm going to leave that off until I see there's no leaks. And I'm also going to do an oil change and a few other things while I've got the car set up. Alright, at this point, double check every one of your hoses, and then you're ready to start to refill the system. Toyota takes the pink stuff. Now, some people have to go get the Toyota brand. I go get the Super Tech, and it's always done just fine for me. And I use the pink stuff. Now, there is the yellow stuff that says it's good for all makes and models. Now, if you want to do that, you can do that. But the one that is made for Toyota, Super Tech, Walmart, is good with me. You can also look down in the description, and I'm going to give a list of tools and parts for this job, including a link to the pink stuff. Maybe you can get it at Amazon and have it shipped right to your door. A little ratchet that will come in handy that will do better than what I had, so you'll have the advantage of that too. Just know it's all 10 millimeter. Everything you touch is 10 millimeter. There's no need to get out all your socket sets, because that's all you're going to need. You're going to need that and a couple pair of pliers. You're going to need maybe some replacement clips in here to put the plastic back on up here, and also the plastic on underneath. It takes at least one of those clips, or several maybe. I bought a whole set of those, and this is one of the best things I ever did. I'll try to put a link to that down below too, because I think I got those on Amazon too at one point. So we're going to put some coolant fluid here. We're going to put it there. First thing you want to do though is to fill this up. You want to take your radiator cap off, and you want to put your pink stuff in there. I'm using Super Tech's Finest, made for Toyota vehicles. Once that gets up to par, you want to also come in here and fill that up to full over here on this side. Fill it up to full because you're going to have some air in the system. There's a way to burp the system, and I'm not going to go through all that, but you can squeeze this hose and you can get it out. You fill this up first, you can squeeze the hose, and then it'll get a lot of the fluid out. You'll want to check it in the next few days also to make sure there's no air in the system, and make sure that that's not low again. Obviously check for leaks. Take out those two, and then it'll swing down. You want to get to that plug right there. That plug right there is a 24 millimeter, so you got to have something big. And what you want to do is you want to fill that up until it dribbles out of the hole. And I've got this little transfer unit that I will pump some in there until it dribbles out. If you're wondering how this setup works exactly like that. Once you put it together, now you can put that pipe in that hole until it dribbles out. I'm working one-handed on this camera, so that's what I'm going to do now. This is crazy when you think about it, you know. Just putting a dipstick in a car in a simple area where you can do this would be great, but they don't do that. I guess to save a couple bucks. Okay, it did start to dribble out, and maybe it did take about a pint. I'm glad I did check. It's not that hard to check, to be honest with you. I'm just going to hand tighten it with the ratchet and a quarter turn, just like anything else, and I'm not going to worry about the torque specs. You can worry about the torque specs. Last night we topped everything off like we talked about, and then we let it run. The heater core in there that heats up the car is also part of the system, so you want to run your heat on high and see if you get good steady output and heat. If you don't, you may have an air pocket in the system. You can watch other videos about how to purge your system. A good way to do it while it's running is to squeeze this and to try to burp all the air out of the system. Leave this off until it heats up. For example, when you're filling it up, and then as soon as you start to see it bubble out, tighten that back down. As you know, I overfilled this a little bit. Overnight, it came back down to this level, so I'm right at good. If you want to know how to bleed your system of air and purge it, You can look up some other videos on YouTube to show you how to do that. All we have left to do is put this back on, and the one that's underneath the car, took half of that one off to do this job, and you just pop these back in. I'm leaving off the bottom one for now because I'm going to do an oil change and do some other things just to get everything going on this car smoothly for the next tens of thousands of miles. Thanks for watching. Look at my other videos down below. Look at the things there that'll help you with links to tools that you'll need and also parts that you may need. Like, share, and subscribe.